And we're back in the room once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once more to the Caiman Show. Oof, it is not a good day today to be a big, hairy biker, but a big, hairy biker I am. It is 30 degrees and I am cooking. Not that I'm complaining. It's not often we see this big yellow thing in the sky. Let's make the most of it. Get out there, get some tan, but put your screen on, guys. Put your screen on. Joining me today, we're talking overcoming obstacles, moving on in life, making peace with yourself, and making peace with other people while we're at it. My guest today, Doug Noll. Welcome to the Caiman Show. It is a pleasure to have you. Pleasure to be sharing your story. How are you?
I am great. Calling from California, just south of Yosemite National Park, where it's supposed to be 101 Fahrenheit today. So it's a little warmer than where you are.
Wow.
Even in warm South Wales, but we are used to it. We have air conditioning and pools, and this is normal for this time of year.
We're not so lucky. As we mentioned just before we click that button, hit record, went on air. We aren't conditioned for it at all over here. You know, we're not conditioned for the sun. We're not conditioned for the snow. Everything stops in the snow. Everything stops in the sun. But I love the sun. So
so you love the fog.
Oh yeah. You know, that's a whole other level. But yeah, it's nice to see it. It's nice to have some sort of summer, because normally our summer involves hail, rain, wind, just anything but sunshine, basically. But it's great to see. But it's good to know that it's nice and hot over there as well, over there in California. But like I said, you are conditioned. But that's enough about that. We brought you on to talk about your story. So obviously, I'll just hand over to you straight away. So you were born with some issues back in the day. Yeah. Do you want to firstly tell us about that? Yeah. And then we'll go from there.
So I was born mostly deaf, pretty blind, not completely blind, but very blind, bad teeth, left-handed, and crippled, 2 club feet. Couldn't walk until I was 3 years old. And I got on the wrong line for everything except smarts. And I got on the good line for smarts, because I'm a pretty smart, intelligent guy.
Good man.
But the problem for me growing up was that nobody knew how to deal with a blind, deaf, crippled left-hander. And my parents pushed me into all kinds of things that I wasn't very good at. And I, of course, built up a lot of defensive mechanisms. But eventually, I learned how to learn. And I went to an Ivy League college, Dartmouth College, and then from there to law school. And practiced law for 22 years. My eyesight got corrected to,
oh, wow,
to 22. Well, the story is in the 4th grade, somebody finally figured out to test my eye. And in those days, this is in the 50s, nobody tested you for anything. And so some school nurse finally tested my eyesight and saw this guy's blind. They finally got me glasses that were about this thick.
Yeah,
and I could see. Right. But what was amazed everybody, and even me, was that I was like a grade level or 2 behind. And in 6 months, I was 4 grade levels ahead.
That's amazing. Fantastic.
And my mother got a call from the librarian, our public librarian in our community, and said, "Hey, he's in the adult section. Do you want me to kick him out or leave him in?" And she said, "Let him go wherever he wants." Which was really a smart move on her part. So I became a voracious reader. And of course, that was a buzzkill for the girls too. So here I was, kind of nerdy, kind of not an athlete, you know, super smart, and kind of screwed up emotionally. But you know, that was just life. It was tough, a lot to overcome, but I did overcome it. And I went to college, and then I went to law school. And along the way, I've learned all kinds of really cool things, like how to fly airplanes and helicopters, and whitewater guide instructor. And you know, I'm a violinist, jazz and blues, an old time folk violinist, and everything not classical I play. And so I've just gotten all these cool skills, and it's all because when I was young, nobody could teach me anything, because they didn't know how to teach me. Everybody got impatient. Like I said, dealing with a left-handed crippled blind kid, you know, how do you teach somebody like that in the 1950s? So I learned how to teach myself. And that is really how my life evolved. So and then, you know, life goes on. I got out, I did law school, and then became a trial lawyer for a long time.
How long were you doing that for? Yeah.
I worked a year for a judge, or an appellate judge. Over here, we call that law clerking, a law clerk. And then I went into private practice as a trial lawyer. In where you're from, you have the bar is split between solicitors and barristers.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right, barristers.
I would
yeah.
be the equivalent of a barrister
Okay.
under English procedure. So I was in the courtrooms, and I did that for 22 years. And here's the story of how things shifted. In the I'm 70 years old. And in the 1980s, mid 80s, I took up the martial arts because I wanted to become a better skier. And I was really bad at it. And I've learned that when I take up something new, I'm really bad at it for a long time. But then it clicks, and then I'm really good at it. I'm either really bad, clicks, then I'm really good. But it takes time for me to get to that click point where the turnover. But ultimately, I became a black belt. And it took me 5 years. I got my first degree black belt. Then a year later, I got my secondary black belt. And
what was that, karate or?
Yeah, it's a Northern Chinese Kung Fu style. Very vicious.
Right, okay.
We break bones, not boards.
Oh, nice.
So my teacher called me in and said, "You're done here. You're arrogant. You're an asshole. You're going to hurt somebody. You're a successful trial lawyer, secondary black belt. You have no fear. And so I'm not going to teach you anymore because you're dangerous. You need to go master Tai Chi." And I didn't know anything about Tai Chi except, seeing these old people in a park floating around. But it turns out that Tai Chi is one of the most violent martial arts that exists and is the basis of all martial arts. All martial arts come from Tai Chi.
Really?
So I did that.
Is that fact? Yeah. Because I thought Tai Chi was more peace,
it
like
is
almost
deadly.
Yoga sort of style. No, it's
It is deadly.
wow.
Most Tai Chi instructors are not martial artists, so they don't know how to teach it as a martial art.
Yeah.
I started applying all my martial arts knowledge to Tai Chi and said, "Holy crap, this is powerful." And yeah, you go real slow. That's the whole point. And there are a whole bunch of reasons why you do that. But anyways, Tai Chi has two paradoxes. The first is the softer you are, the stronger you are.
Okay.
And the second paradox is the more vulnerable you are, the more powerful you are. Soft to be strong, vulnerable to be powerful. Did not compute.
No.
I'm a hardcore trial lawyer, hardcore secondary black belt, street fighter.
Yeah, all in like.
Soft to be strong, vulnerable to be powerful. No thanks. It didn't work. But here's what happened. I kept practicing and got better and better. And finally it clicked and I got really good at it. And then one day, some years later, I was in a courtroom and the thought came to me, what the heck am I doing in here? Just out of the blue.
Finished the penny dropped.
Yep. Went on a whitewater trip. I had a whitewater trip planned as a vacation. Went on the trip for 10 days in central Idaho. Spent the 10 days thinking about how many people I'd really served as a trial lawyer, and I could only come up with 5 people that I'd really helped out of hundreds and hundreds of trials and cases. So I said to myself, I'm not going to go another 30 years and only help 15 people in my life. I want to do something different. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I came home. I live in the mountains above the city of Fresno, and was driving down from my home into my office, and I heard a public service announcement on a local public radio station for a new degree, a master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies, being offered at Fresno Pacific University, which is the West Coast Mennonite University. The Mennonites are one of the 3 traditional Protestant peace churches. Caught my attention. And so I enrolled. And I was taught by some of the most brilliant professors in peacemaking you could possibly ever hope to have. And it completely changed my whole life. So we had many long partner meetings around me becoming a peacemaker and not being a trial lawyer, because I was the second largest earner in the firm. And ultimately, one day in 2000, the managing partner of the firm at that time, who was my peer, he and I graduated from law school the same year, came into my office and said, "You're not getting any more paychecks until you stop this peacemaking crap."
Really? Why?
Because what it turned out to be is it really scared everybody.
Ah, right. Okay.
A whole new way of thinking about how to solve problems.
Yeah.
So that was on a Friday. Thought about it over the weekend, came back on Monday and say, "I quit. I'm leaving on Friday."
Really?
So
just like that?
I just walked out. I did everything I told my clients never to do. No business plan, no resources, no money, no nothing. And I left $10 million on the table, more money that I put into the firm than taken out. And I just walked away. Best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made.
Fantastic.
I don't make nearly as much money these days as I did in those days. But I look around at most of the colleagues I know, lawyers that I know, I don't see happy lawyers. I don't see happy lawyers. I see a lot of really tired, stressed out lawyers, but I don't see happy lawyers. I'm happy. I'm doing some really cool stuff. And, you know, at 70 years old, my life's just getting started. So
Brilliant.
it is really, really, really cool.
That's awesome. Well, I suppose, you know, there's two different variations of rich, isn't there? You know, there's financially rich or there's rich in here. And I suppose it's the latter that you're experiencing at the moment. Absolutely.
And it's really hard to understand. I mean, I went through the whole drill, the big house on a big estate with the big fancy cars and fancy vacations, spending buckets of money, way over my head in debt, in a miserable marriage. And, you know, I did all that. Everybody, and it's what everybody does, right?
Yeah.
But it's
I've had two of those.
Yeah, it's not where happiness is.
No, I've upgraded now though.
I mean, here's what I've learned. And for all of you who are listening, I know this sounds a little trite, but it's true. True happiness comes from serving others, figuring out a way in your life to serve others, even if you just do one simple little thing for one person every day. It doesn't have to be some big Mother Teresa thing, but just learning how to serve others. I have found that creates more meaning and more happiness in my life than anything else that I've ever done. And making money just isn't that important. And that's a hard lesson to learn, because we're all driven to acquire, and we're bombarded by buy this car, buy this diamond, have this, go on this vacation, you know, get your liposuction, look sexy when you're 70, you know, all this crap.
That's it. Society drives you to that level, like you say, don't it? It's like it's all over the TV, it's all over the radio, it's everywhere you look, billboards, whatever. It's like you say, buy this car, you know, have this job, earn this money, meet these people, eat in this restaurant, blah blah blah. You know, it's there's like the paparazzi version of success, and then there's personal success, I think. That's
right.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. That's what it's all about. And when I finally got that insight, my whole life changed. I found a woman found me. I didn't chase her, she chased me, but it turned out to be the best decision of my life. I've never been happier married to her. And we just have an amazing life together, we serve hundreds of thousands of people. We both have online businesses with our teaching and coaching and training. And I'm actually going to do my first in-person workshop in 2 years next week. I haven't done one of those in a long time.
Oh, fantastic. Why not? Because of COVID. COVID's put a spanner in the works. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. I've been doing workshops and training people in my skills, how to listen other people into existence. You know, I've been doing it virtually, and it works really well. And I reach people all over the world. So the really cool thing is to be able to wake up in the morning and say, how many people do I get to serve today? How many people's lives do I get to shift today? You know, no one helped me shift my life when I was disabled kid, but now I can help a lot of people who are not happy become happy through just the application of some simple counterintuitive skills that are really, really powerful. And I mean, what more could you ask for than to be able to do
what it's all about. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, stepping back a bit to where you saw the ads and everything, if we could. Yeah. So you enrolled, you joined up, you went through it. What does it take to become a peacemaker then? So what did they give to you or teach to you first off as like your first lesson?
I guess my first lesson was that up until that time, I'd been trained. Of course, I was a lawyer, and I was also a part-time law professor.
Yeah.
And what the big insight for me was that human conflict is far more complex. It's more complex than the law can handle. The law takes human conflict and distills it into these abstract principles. And that's why people are so angry at lawyers, because we are trained to take this very difficult human problem and distill it into these abstractions that we call legal principles, and then apply those legal principles to come up with some kind of result, typically monetary result. So everything gets still distilled down to money. And what I learned, even in my first week of training, was that human conflict is far more complex than that. And there are very, very few conflicts that really belong in the legal system. But because people have never been trained how to have difficult conversations, how to manage difficult conflicts, the first thing they do when they get into conflict is turn to their, well, over here we call them junkyard lawyers, the meanest, the meanest, toughest lawyer you can find to beat up on the other guy. And that insight coupled with what I thought about when I was on that river trip before I did all of this was that the reason that the legal system fails people is because it's being asked to do things it was never designed to do. And that's why so many people are unhappy with lawyers and unhappy with the legal system. But they don't know where else to turn. So what I learned was I started studying conflict behavior, and then that got me into neuroscience. And in those days, neuroscience, nobody knew what neuroscience was. That new technologies were just coming out, and I fortunately got tutored by a neuroscientist at Caltech in Pasadena, California, and he taught me how to think about all of this. And I just came to the understanding that all peace and conflict originates in our brains, so we ought to be understanding what's going on in a person's brain when they're in high conflict. And there's some really interesting things that happen. The first thing that happens, and we all know this, but nobody really understood why, is that when we get emotional and angry, we can't think anymore.
No, there's no rational thinking.
There's no possibility of thinking. And that led me to the insight that we're 98% emotional and only 2% rational. We are not rational beings. And all this myth we've been fed for 4,000 years that what separates us from other species is our rationality is wrong. What separates us from other species are our emotions, because only humans have emotions. And this is something that most people don't get. They think, well, my dog has emotion, my cat has emotion, or the primates have emotion. They don't. They have what's known as affect. They have biological responses that at a very primitive level are the precursor to emotion, but they are not emotions themselves. And that was a huge insight.
Yeah, that is an insight for me right now. I'll be honest with you. I'd always thought, particularly primates, apes and whatnot, the way they nurture the young,
sure,
hang out in the colonies, and I would have put that down as emotion, but no, right. That's not emotion?
Well, the trick here is to define what emotion is. So emotions are these biologically based patterns of cognition, experience, training, and culture that help us understand why we feel the way we do. And it's all based on these biological things that happen in our brains called affect, A-F-F-E-C-T. The primates and other mammals all have affect, and they're, depending on which theory you follow, I follow a 9 affect model, which by Sylvan Tompkins. And so they do have happiness, excitement, love. They also have surprise, startle. They have rage, fear, shame, humiliation, all of that stuff, disgust. Most all mammals have these basic affective states, but what they don't have is emotion. What emotion is our cognitive ability to understand what we're feeling inside ourselves, and then one, be able to concretize it into consciousness so we can see what it is. 2, look around and say, what's causing this? 3, make decisions about what we want to do with it. And 4, and most importantly, be able to communicate what we're experiencing to other people. And only humans can do that. Other animals don't do that very well.
No, another animal might attack or, kill the other animal or whatnot. That's as humans, you may want to do that sometimes. God knows I've been there. But,
of course.
You need to think outside the box, don't you? Okay, or you will end up in a court of law.
That's right. So only humans can do that. So that's why I say that what separates us from all other species is our emotions. And when people push back on the rationality part, I say, wait a minute, you can't even be rational unless you're emotional first. Because how would you even know to apply principles of rationality, whatever that is, to a problem unless you had an emotional experience that told you that you had a problem that required some rationality? If you didn't have emotions, there's no way you could understand what's going on in your environment. You would never know that you have a problem. It's emotions that tell us that we've got a problem out there we've got to solve using rationality or rational process, critical thinking, logic, whatever it might be. But unless we have an emotion first, we would never know that.
That's awesome.
And most people don't even think about that.
Yeah.
How would you know to use rationality if you didn't have an emotional experience telling you that you had a problem to solve?
Well, it wouldn't be an easy thing to do, would it? At all. Yeah, no brainer. No, that's great. Fantastic. That's
So
really
those are
interesting.
some of the insights I got. And then as I started mediating cases and became a peacemaker and being called in to deal with some difficult conflicts, I started watching people's behaviors. What's going on here? And I developed a set of skills that no one had ever taught me. I just figured them out on my own, on how you can literally calm somebody down in 90 seconds or less. Literally de-escalate any person. I don't care how angry they are. They can't help themselves. You can calm them down in 90 seconds or less. It's amazing. And it works every single time.
Give us a tip.
Okay. So here's how you do it. Number one, when you're confronted with an angry person, now I'm going to tell you, first of all, this is counterintuitive and it takes practice. So don't jump in the deep end.
No worries.
All right. Number one, when somebody's really angry at you, either at you or just angry, and you're there in their presence, number one thing you do is you ignore their words. Completely turn off that part of your brain. What you hear is white noise. That's all you want to hear is white noise. You've heard angry words a million times before. There's nothing new here. There's no new news. So you can afford for a minute or two to ignore the words.
Switch off. Yeah.
Switch off. Number two, you are going to read the emotions that the other person is experiencing. Now, most people say, I can't do that. I mean, don't even know my own emotions. Well, here's the thing that's really cool. Our brains are hardwired to read other people's emotions automatically and effortlessly. The problem is we've just never developed that capacity.
We don't tap into it so much. Yeah.
Because we're told that emotions are bad, or they're irrational, or we should not, lots of bad stuff around emotions. But we can easily read other people's emotions. So all you have to do is just say, okay, what's going on here? Go into a place of just silence, stillness inside yourself, and all of a sudden their emotions will stop popping up in your head, and you'll get it. I mean, it's automatic. It's really effortless. And then the third step, and this is where the secret sauce is, but it's also the hard part, is that you reflect back another person's emotional experience with a simple you statement. So I would say to you, Caiman, for example, if you were really, you weren't angry at me, but you were angry at something, I'd say, oh man, Caiman, you're really pissed off. You're really frustrated. You're really angry. You don't feel like you're being listened to. You feel completely unappreciated. You feel completely disrespected. And what happened, you felt was really unfair to you. And it just really, really pisses you off. And you feel sad because you want to be connected, but these people are just being assholes around you. And it's really upsetting to you. You notice how you just calmed down even though you weren't angry?
Just then, yeah. That last point there you made, just like,
yeah. And that's exactly what happens. What you just did is exactly what happens.
It was. I could feel it. Like you say, I wasn't even angry. I didn't even have an issue then, And,
but you've had those experiences before.
I have, yeah.
Even in the abstract, it relaxes you. And our brains are hardwired for this. There's a brain scanning study that came out in 2007 that explains why all this happens. It's automatic. And it flies against everything that everybody's been taught about how to listen. You don't use I statements. You don't do that active listening crap that doesn't work. You don't use nonviolent communication that doesn't work. All you do is reflect back emotions with a simple you statement. That's all you have to do.
That is brilliant.
And you felt it. You saw.
I felt it. You could see yourself.
Right. And it works every single. This is so powerful that in 2010, we started. My colleague and I, Laurel Coffer and I, started the Prison of Peace Project. And
what does it talk to you about that? Lead into that. Go on.
We got into that. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do it was because I wanted to test this idea of reflecting emotions in the most difficult environment that I could think of.
Most extreme environment, yeah.
Right, maximum security prison. So we've been teaching murderers how to be peacemakers for the last 11 years. Now, the pandemic kind of shut us down, but then we did a distance learning project, and now we're putting our entire curriculum on video. So by the end of the year, every prison in the world can get access to Prison of Peace. And what we basically do is take people who are incarcerated from ground zero, or sometimes below ground zero, and within a year, train them how to be a peacemaker and a mediator. And every prison we've gone into, we've been in 15 California prisons, a prison in Connecticut, and 15 prisons in Greece. We have a colleague, a Greek lawyer, who is doing Prison of Peace in Greece. Every prison we go into, the violence drops like a rock after about 3 months.
3 months?
It takes about 3 months.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it works because we're using these neuroscientific principles that I've been talking about. And we train these people how to deal with the kinds of things that could escalate into violence. And once they start learning it, they get it, they go out and practice it, calms the whole yard down. Everything calms down. We've gotten letters from wardens and yard captains and all kinds of people saying, we can't believe what your training has done to this institution. Very, very powerful.
I can imagine. Yeah, well, I suppose if they've seen, one set of circumstances for X amount of years, so many years, and then like you say, within 3 months of your arrival, there's results like that. That's amazing.
That's right. And the other thing that's really cool is that we've personally trained probably 2,000, 3,000 inmates who are serving life sentences. The laws have changed a lot in California. So a lot of these formerly incarcerated people have been released. Over a couple of thousand that I have personally trained. Not one person has reoffended. Not really? One person of peace certified mediator has reoffended.
Jeez, well, it's clearly working, isn't it? It's clearly working.
So when I talk about a life of service, that's what I mean. I mean, who would have ever guessed me going into prisons, training murderers how to be peacemakers? I could have never imagined that in 1,000 years back when I got the practice of law. But here I am doing it, and we touch hundreds. Tens of thousands of lives with this, because we got all the families and the communities, and these people go back into the communities as peacemakers and spread the gospel. And I mean, it's amazing.
It's fantastic stuff. It's powerful stuff. Cool. Really powerful stuff. So how did you manage to break into the prison scene then? Was that something you were asked to do, or something you seek to do for yourself, or a bit of both?
We were asked, and what happened was that a woman who was serving a life sentence without possibility of parole in the largest, most violent women's prison in the world at that time, wrote a bunch of letters to mediators in California. And one of the letters ended up in my colleague, Laurel Coffer's mailbox. She lives in Los Angeles. And she opened the letter, wondering, what is this? And read the letter, and then pulled her phone out of her pocket and called me immediately, because the prison wasn't too far from where I lived.
Yeah.
And she read the letter to me. And basically what this person was asking us to do is to come in and train all the lifers in the prison, of which were about 300, to be mediators and peacemakers, so they could stop the violence, because they're in a community that they're not getting out, and they are tired of the violence. And the guards are, it's just a big mess. So we talked about it. And Laurel said, well, what do you think? And I said, yeah, I think if this is real, we should do this. But we were both lawyers and law professors and mediators, and a little skeptical of getting a letter from a person in prison. But we checked her out. And we sent back and asked her a bunch of questions. And she wrote back. And the next letter we got from her a month later was a 17-page handwritten letter.
Wow.
Answering every one of our questions. And we said, okay, she's for real.
Yeah, the heart and soul was in there.
That's right. It took us 6 months to finally get permission to go into the prison and start the program. But we started it in April of 2010 with our first 15 women. And they were ages basically from 30, 31, all the way up to 65. We had Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, whites. We had people who didn't have a high school education, all the way up to people who had doctorate degrees. I mean, the range of women was really remarkable. And I'll never forget I have so many stories, but this is one that really sticks with me. We had taught them these deep listening skills called affect labeling, 4 levels of reflective listening. And for the first 5 weeks, they were like blackthorns. They were shut down and angry and skeptical, a little curious, but not a lot out there. And then week 6, everything shifted. We came back into the room, they were all assembled, and instead of seeing blackthorns, we saw beautiful roses.
That's amazing.
All of their humanity had changed because they've been listening to emotions, their own emotions and the emotions of others. All of a sudden, they got back in touch with who they were. And they saw how the ability to reflect emotions calmed things down, and it made them happy and grateful that they had skills that actually worked. And the whole thing completely changed. And they were smiling, and they put makeup on. And I mean, they were thrilled to see us, and anxious learners. And we thought, whoa, that's pretty weird. I didn't expect that.
That must have felt great, man.
It did feel great, but we thought it was a fluke.
Yeah.
Until we taught our next cohort. And at week 6, it happened again. And then our third cohort, and at week 6, it happened again. And then when we ultimately started training men, we started going to men's prison. Same thing, week 6. All these gangbanger, shut down, tatted up guys, really violent. It's week 6, completely changed.
So is that the pattern? Is there the pattern? Week 6 it seems to be when the minds start to settle and simmer down and get into things. They've dealt with it all, everything in the back of their heads and everything, and they start to open up. This week 6.
That's right.
Why does it take that long, do you think?
But it doesn't. Now, what I've learned is, as I teach this on the outside, well, yeah, I mean, actually, I do. It does take about 6 weeks. So you take, let's just say you took one of my online video courses where I teach this stuff online, or a coaching session or whatever. I typically tell people it'll take 4 to 6 weeks for you to integrate this. And at the end of that period, you will see amazing transformations in your lives. And that is pretty much what people experience. This is not something you could just do and expect to have change, because it's so radical, it's so counterintuitive. And I always tell people, when you're learning how to listen other people into existence, which is what I call this, don't do this at home yet. You can do it on your cat, you can do it on your dog, you can do it on a small child, but don't do it on your partner. Go out in socially safe places and practice, like at a coffee shop or a pub or some place where you can talk to a server, perfect stranger, and you can practice. So you can say something, hey man, you look really happy today. And you'll get back this huge, like you said, the big sigh and the relief and the smile, and you'll see for yourself that it works. So it becomes self-reinforcing. And that's how you start to practice this. And after you've done it for 4 or 5 weeks and you feel comfortable with it, then you can go a little deeper into the pool. And eventually, with practice, you can handle any kind of intense conflict. And you'll know exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it in any situation you might face. And you can think of how many situations are we in where not even deep conflict, like maybe we're confronting somebody who's lost a loved one and they're in deep grief. What do you say to a person like that?
It's awkward, isn't it?
It is awkward.
I think naturally it's
That's right, until you learn how to read their emotions. Then you would say, oh, Caiman, man, you are in deep grief. You feel this immense sadness and loneliness, and you're confused and anxious because you don't know how you're going to get through life without your partner. And you're just in overwhelm right now. And you're a little pissed off because they left you all alone. And that's making you a little frustrated too. Because those are all the layers that people have when they have grief.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, I just see you start to smile and relax again.
I know, and there's nothing wrong with me.
I know, but here's the thing: I'm validating your general experience, just like I'm validating everybody's watching. I'm validating. Yeah. We all have this exact same experience. We all think we're alone and isolated, and we're the only ones that experience this. No, we all experience the same thing. So when I validate your experience, all of a sudden you don't feel alone anymore. You feel, here's somebody who really gets me.
Someone who understands. Yeah,
that's right. And that's why I call it listening other people into existence, because that's literally what you're doing. I'm listening you into existence. I'm seeing you. I'm validating you. I'm saying, Caiman, I see you for who you are, and you're perfect.
You're pretty perfect yourself, man. You're pretty perfect yourself, Doug. Honestly, I could listen to you all day, you know. How long you got?
I don't have anything for another couple hours.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So you're doing the prisons at the moment then. So there's loads and loads and loads and loads of prisons by all accounts then. So there's 15 in Greece, 1 in Connecticut, 15 in California. What are your plans with this for the future?
So this is what's really exciting. Because of the pandemic, we had some grants from the state of California to be able to do our work in maximum security prisons in California. Well, the prison authorities that administer the grants called us in March of this year, 2021, and said, you got to spend all that money by the 30th. We don't want the money back. By June 30th, we don't want the money back, right?
Okay.
Well, how can we spend the money?
Yeah, no pressure.
So it took about 2 seconds for Laurel and I to figure out that we could do something we've always wanted to do. And that is take the entire curriculum and digitize it, put it on video.
Excellent
So
idea.
we've hired a commercial film crew, 3 cameras, film editor, I mean, a whole Hollywood deal. And we spent 3 weeks in 2 different sessions in May and June on set. That's intense work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We brought in formerly incarcerated people who are our best trainers who've been released, and we taught each of the different sections of the curriculum on video. And we're in post-production right now. And by the end of the year, anybody who wants to introduce prison of peace into any kind of local correctional institution, whether it be a prison, a jail, a reentry program, we will have this in English, and it won't be that difficult to move it into other languages, but it'll be in English with all the manuals. And depending upon who you are and what you do, I mean, the cost is going to be really nominal compared to what it would have cost to bring us to you, where you pay them. Let's just say in the UK. I mean, obviously, getting us there from California is enormously expensive. Not anymore. Now we can teach you how to use the materials over Zoom, and then you can go into the prisons and start teaching incarcerated people how to become peacemakers and mediators.
That's awesome.
So we hope and expect that Prison of Peace will go worldwide in the next couple of years.
Excellent stuff. I think it's a fantastic concept myself. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. It's great stuff. Where can people find out more about this?
So I set up a webpage for people, for your audience.
Excellent.
It's dougnoll.com/podcast/Caiman. dougnoll.com/podcast/Caiman. And on that page, I've got if people want to get a free ebook on how to listen to other people in existence, they can do that. They can buy my book, De-Escalate: How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. I've got a link to that. And if they're really excited and want to take the course, the basic and advanced course, I've got a link for them to do that. So lots of resources. dougnoll.com/podcast/Caiman.
Excellent stuff. We'll pop it
in
the video.
I got a little promo on there for you. And when we get the links all up, send them to me, and I'll make sure I've got them on my website, and we'll get them out on social media.
Hey, that's fantastic. Excellent stuff. Excellent. Well, I'll pop them all the links in the description on the audio and on the video platforms as well. So it's there for people to click direct as well then. So that's excellent stuff. Brilliant. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say on this? Anything else you want to plug? Anyone else you want to shout out to, or any acknowledgements?
I want to shout out to you for having the vision to bring people like me on from, I'm 12,000 miles away, having me come on and talk about this stuff, and creating a platform for people who may not have a platform. And I just want to hats off to you and to everybody who's listening. Support this guy. I mean, this is a labor of love. And I was a podcaster for 8 years, so I know what's involved. And it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Yeah, it's
a lot of work.
I love doing it though as well.
Getting on Zoom and talking with some crazy.
Oh no. There's a little bit more to it than that.
Just a little bit. So all of you who are listening and watching this, you're watching this on YouTube. Put a like in. Put a comment in. So YouTube knows that this is something worth doing. Subscribe to the channel. Get on. He's got a big Caiman. I saw your Facebook stuff. Get on Facebook. I mean, people support this work because it's through people like Caiman that you learn about people like me, and that's the value of what this is all about.
Excellent stuff. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. Cheers, Doug. That's awesome. My man. So what are you up to for the rest of the day? Anything exciting going on? You've got a busy one?
I've got 2 more Zoom calls today. And no podcast, but some interesting conversations I'm going to have. And I'm working on, I've got a Facebook Live going on Thursday, so I'm going to start preparing for that. Check out this. Do people lie to you to get your love? Do people lie to you to get your love? I'm going to be talking about that on Thursday on my Facebook Live. And if people are interested in that, my Facebook page is Douglas Noll, Facebook Douglas Noll, and you can find me really easily. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live and talking about why do people lie to you to get love from you? And they do.
They do, yeah.
Why? And
tell us a bit more. Give us a little bit more about that, if you would.
Here's what's going on. And this is something that no psychologist or therapist or counselor will ever talk to you about because they're not trained to think this way. The reason that people lie to you is because they don't feel emotionally safe with you. You haven't created the safety for them to feel like they can be honest and transparent and show you their real stuff. So here's how life is. we've got, this is the side that I show the world, right? And this is the side that I want to hide from the world because it's all the shame and humiliation and worthlessness and self-doubt and all the crap that was programmed into us as children. When I feel emotionally safe, I can go like this. If I don't feel emotionally safe with you, then I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go like this. I'm going to lie to you. So if you want relationships that are honest and transparent and fulfilling and happy, you need to learn how to create emotional safety. And the only way to create emotional safety is to learn how to listen to other people into existence. Pretty cool, huh?
Super cool, man. Super cool. Yeah. What an awesome guest.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Doug, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I say that with a hand on my heart as well.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. You're doing awesome things already, so you're not going to need my well wishes. You're there already. Keep doing what you're doing. Do keep in touch as well. That's fantastic.
I will. If I make it to South Wales, we'll go out and have a beer.
Ah, man, I'm all over a beer. I'm always up for a beer.
I'm a whiskey drinker, but I'll have a beer too. I've never had South Wales beer, but I'm sure it's pretty good stuff.
Fantastic. I know a few great real ales as well. I know a few local breweries. We'll make it happen. Look me up. 100%. Doug Noll, everybody, check out his stuff online. We'll put some links in the comments section, etc. Do have a look if you've got some time on your hands and you want to make some changes. Doug, fantastic talking to you. I could literally talk to you all day. I could just sit there and listen to you all day. But thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Doug Noll, everybody. Woohoo!